Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.
It is the Morning Sports Desk on a Tuesday, the 4th of March. I'm CJ Baumgartner. That's Corey Tackman. This is the Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. Here we go, Corey. We have a full slate of high school girls basketball playoffs. Why don't we start with your game? You are going to be heading up to Memorial Auditorium in Moorhead for a fun one.
Yes, indeed. That's at Concordia, by the way.
Yes.
In case you're wondering. No, you said it right. You said Memorial Auditorium in Moorhead. I was just clarifying for myself. I don't know what it was in my brain that made me think Memorial Auditorium was at Moorhead High School. It isn't. That's Concordia. That's like the gym in Concordia.
Yeah.
I've been off on this in my head for 24 hours now. It's ridiculous. Anyway,
you realized it beforehand. If you'd have just showed up to high school and just been like, "What? Where is everybody? Why can I not get in?"
I would have, drive there and then go, "This is not right." At least it wouldn't have been far away,
Right.
Menahga comes in 24-4 on the season. Their run through the 8AA playoffs includes victories over Roseau and East Grand Forks. Most recently, a 54-50 victory over EGF. EGF, now they play DGF, a different letter in the alphabet. Are there any other GFs in the there's a GFW that's in the south central part of the state, but we've got an EGF and a DGF. Is there a BGF or an HGF or a JGF or anything like that we know of?
I have a UHF starring Weird Al Yankovic, but that's about it.
No, I think that's exactly right. Of course, Menahga, we know, Park Region Conference champions. They play Dilworth, Glendon, Felton, 22-5. Co-champions in the Heart of Lakes Conference with Barnesville. Menahga, the 4 seed in this 8AA tournament. DGF, the 1 seed in this 8AA bracket. So, pretty much the point of this is that it's a semifinal, right? It's a semifinal, 2 games away from making a state tournament, and that's it. That's it. There's, I don't know. There's nothing else I could say that could elevate the importance of this game. This is just an important game. It's a section semifinal. It's at Concordia. Unbelievable atmosphere. It's the early game of 2 games at Concordia here today. The other in the bracket tonight will, about an 8 o'clock, 7:30, 7:45 start time, whatever. Superstation K-106, Superstation K-106 app, WadenaRadio.com, Menahga, DGF from Concordia. Boom shakalaka.
This will be a fun one, mainly because of Menahga. They're a 4 seed, but they feel like they could have had a chance to be higher when you look at that losing streak that they had when they missed a couple key players for them, and they still played really well in those games. I remember talking with Coach Pouliou a couple weeks ago when they clinched the Park Region Conference, and he was saying, we had single-digit losses in all of those games to a good Rock Ridge team. You lose to a couple, you lose to New York Mills in there, but then there was a couple section opponents that you fell to as well. And again, all without your best player. And now you got her back to end the year. She's back in the fold. Everything's going well. And now you feel like, hey, even though we're a 4 seed in name, like on paper, feel like we're higher than that. So this is going to be a really nice matchup, I think, between Menahga and DGF tonight. It'll be really fun. And it's always a great atmosphere up at that gym in Moorhead. So it should be a pretty a fun matchup tonight there. I have 5A girls basketball between Bertha-Hewitt and Walker Hackensack Akeley. The Wolves of Walker Hackensack Akeley are the 1 seed in the West subsection of 5A, while the Bears are the 2 seed. So you get a 1 versus 2 matchup here. Bertha-Hewitt is 19-8, while Walker Hackensack Akeley is 23-4. They play in the Northwoods Conference South Division, while the Bears play in the Park Region Conference, of course. And with Walker Hackensack Akeley, they're the defending section champions. They are 2 wins away from potentially getting back to that spot again. There's only 4 losses on the season, Corey, for Walker Hackensack Akeley. They all have come to teams with a QRF of 100 or better. This is a team that is, talking with Coach Line, who's been there for so many years. They have gotten a good schedule set out. They wanted to get a tough schedule. They did. They're a nice 22-4 team overall. They have a QRF that's gone up a little bit, but coming into Saturday, it was a 91.2. They're 12-1 in 5A play. They were 12-1 in conference play throughout the season, 11-1 at home, 2-2 in neutral site games, 10-1 on the road. Again, for Coach Lean, they had the court named after him. He's also a Girls Basketball Coaches Association Carl Pearson Legacy Award winner this year. For the Wolves themselves on the court, Aubrey Morrison is a Miss Basketball candidate. Ava Welk is an 1,000+ career rebounder. This is a team offensively that somehow managed to get better from a year ago. They're averaging about 7 more points per game than they did last year. And defensively, they're averaging about 8 points less per game. So even though they've played a tough schedule, they still found a way to improve upon last year's stats. They're just a very nice team all around. They got a win over Sabika, 69-30 on Saturday to get their win to advance. Was able to call that game on the Superstation on Saturday night. Bertha-Hewitt, they're a team that this is the furthest they've got, Corey, in a long time. As somebody who's an alum of that school, the last time they got 19 wins in a season was the 2010-11 season. Of course, with the Stokes girls kind of in their primes in that a run there, but those were some very nice girls basketball teams, and this team has put themselves in that same category just with the things that they've been able to do on the court wins wise in the regular season. They were able to get a victory over Pine River Bacchus 61-46 on Saturday night. Bertha-Hewitt, they're not an offensive juggernaut, but what they do is they like to pester, they like to run up and down the floor, and all of the Dean girls just don't stop moving like ever. Wishala can hit some threes. Anna Hegarty had a 20-point game, which was super important for them to help lift them past the Tigers in that one. Really, overall, this is a really nice. They have not made a subsection championship game in a very long time. I want to say since those teams in the late early aughts of the early 2010s, when you kind of had the runs with the Finks and the Stokeses and some other names I'm sure I'm forgetting in there, but then they also ran into some really good Sabika Trojans girls basketball teams at the time there. So, but like, it's a really fun matchup tonight. I think it's going to be, I think Walker obviously is Hackensack Akeley is obviously the favorite. They're the defending champs. They have all the hardware. Last year though, Corey, when these two teams played, Walker got off to a bit of a slow start. Walker Hackensack Akeley got off to a bit of a slow start, and Bertha-Hewitt was able to take advantage early, and they got out to a hot start, and that's just the way the game broke out in a single elimination game. Sometimes that's what it comes down to make it close, and Walker Hackensack Akeley was able to come through at the end and win last year that way. Bertha-Hewitt just couldn't quite hang on at the end. It kind of just depends. If Walker Hackensack Akeley comes and shoots the lights out to begin the game, like there's just not much you can do. They're just an excellent offensive team. And there's a case to be made that Bertha-Hewitt could also come out, limit Walker Hackensack Akeley shots early, and then you have a game, and then you kind of see what happens. But either way, Wadena Deer Creek Middle High School Gym is the place where that is going to be. 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock tip-off, 101.7 FM and AM 920 KWAD. Also streaming online at wadenaradio.com/KWAD. Corey, that's our broadcast schedule. It can be found at wadenaradio.com or the Superstation K-106 mobile app. We will be updating that thing in the coming days, too. We have high school boys basketball coming up on Thursday. If one of these two teams wins, they get to play on Friday night in a section championship game, which we will be covering. And then we'll have boys basketball on Saturday as well. A busy week for us. Stay in the loop at wadenaradio.com. Corey, we better shout out the good folks at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena. They help make the morning sports desk possible each and every day with some great pizza.
before we get into what happens on Tuesdays at the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade, want to remind you about the announcement we made here yesterday that the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena are doing a birthday party giveaway. You can find the details on the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade Wadena Facebook page. Scan the QR code, submit your entry, one entry per email address. But we're talking about of a prize package valued at $500. Again, we ran through those details yesterday. The most important thing is scan that QR code and get yourself entered. So that is something you have till the end of the month to do, but you only have till the end of the day today to take a break from your kitchen and wallet, because on Tuesdays at Wadena Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade, kids 10 and under eat free. Kids 10 and under eat free every Tuesday with a paying adult, and it's that simple. You show up to the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade, let them handle dinner plans, lunch plans, brunch plans, whatever is in between lunch and supper. What do you call that? Are you a Lupper guy? Or are you more of a? I'm
a Brinner.
Oh, you're a Brinner guy. I understand. Okay.
For dinner. That's what I'm going with.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And let the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade take care of you today. Take care of you for that birthday party as well. Get yourself signed up. Do all of that. Find out all those details on the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade Facebook page, or most importantly, and the easiest way possible, stop in, go see him in person, and enjoy a delicious meal on the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
All right, shifting to a little bit of state sports here, Corey. Let's talk a little Minnesota Timberwolves. We did not have a chance to talk about this yesterday. We had a bit of a loaded show talking with Kyle about some state wrestling debriefing and an interview with Coach Tappy of Staples Motley that we had. That was all in yesterday's episode. Go check it out. Great conversations with both of them. But on Sunday night, the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Phoenix Suns. They are 4-0 against the Suns this season or something along those lines, and they are obviously 4-0 from last year's playoffs. They've 3-0 this year. They've won 7 straight against Phoenix is basically the way to do it. They've just had the Suns number, and it just might more be indicative of the Suns kind of imploding as a franchise more than anything.
Yeah, they stink.
Yeah. By the way, who owns that? Who owns that team in Phoenix?
It's someone you have a personal relationship with.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's his brother. That's where that is.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah. Matt Ishbia owns the Suns. Justin Ishbia was going to buy the Twins until he decided to buy God's curse on humanity, the Chicago White Sox. Besides the point, that franchise is a mess right now, and Kevin Durant's probably going to get traded in the offseason. But they're a mess, and the Wolves won. They didn't start out great, but the Suns just, again, don't care, and they lost, and they're going to go through their 4th head coach in 4 seasons, and it's a train wreck for them. But the Wolves won. And the biggest takeaway of the game, Corey, was the Anthony Edwards non-call. So it was late in the game, and the Wolves got a steal, 20-point lead, 4th quarter, like 3 minutes to go. And DiVincenzo gets a steal or an outlet pass, doesn't matter. He has the ball in transition, slams the ball on the floor, bounces the ball off the floor in the lane for Ant to be able to slam it home as like an exclamation point on the win. And Beal two-handed shoves Edwards in midair as a sign of frustration. Whatever. It's not great, but that's not the end of the world. The biggest thing, Corey, Anthony Edwards was two-hand shoved in midair trying to dunk a basketball. And at the end of it, the whistle blew and the officials went, Phoenix ball? They had to be reviewed. And then upon review was a flagrant 1. But the fact that Anthony Edwards gets two-handed shoved in midair and officials won't call it. Meanwhile, you breathe on Shea too hard and you get a flagrant 2. And I understand Anthony Edwards does not do himself any favors with his whistle. That is obvious. But you can understand why there is frustration. It's a chicken or the egg. Is Anthony Edwards frustrated because he doesn't get any calls, or the refs mad that Anthony, it's this self-fulfilling prophecy a little bit. But Corey, what does Anthony Edwards have to do to get a better whistle? My goodness.
Well, you made we talked about this a little earlier, and I think it's an important and kind of funny point on all of this, on what Bradley Beal had to say. Can you kind of just repeat that story for me so I can get that correct?
Yeah, let me find the specific tweet because Bradley Beal talked about, there was a clip of him, and this is like a 2-minute clip, so I'm not going to play it, but Bradley Beal, this is according to Dwayne Rankin, he covers the Phoenix Suns for the Arizona Central. He said, Bradley Beal said Minnesota didn't have to turn the game into a quote-unquote highlight reel, with Dante DiVincenzo attempting to bounce a lob dunk to Anthony Edwards late in the Suns' loss to Wolves. He said he didn't intend to hurt Edwards, later had words with T-Wolves bench. Quote, they were trying to say, you can't do that. And I said, that's fine, but you can't just think I'm going to let that happen. So remember, kids, it's disrespectful to the game to bounce the ball off the floor, to dunk it in a game where you're up 20 and the Suns stopped trying 10 minutes before. That's disrespectful to the game. What will bring more respect to the game is if you two-handed shove a player in midair. That's what's going to help. That brings honor to the game, you know?
So what I hear from all of this is Bradley Beal knew exactly what he was doing. You're not going to do that to me on my court.
Mm-hmm.
I actually don't have a huge disagreement with that.
I don't have a disagreement with that. Yeah.
So, but what I hear is Bradley Beal being like, no, I 100% shoved him on purpose because you're not going to do that to me. He shoved Edwards in the air on purpose, knowing full well the repercussions of that shove was going to get him a flagrant, a possible ejection, and a possible fine. And then none of those things happened.
Yeah. That's like,
the thing is, Bradley Beal resigned himself to the fact that you are not going to do this to me, and I'm going to, the consequences of my actions are going to be worth it. I'm going to do it anyway. And then there were no consequences to the actions.
Right. And by the way, what would happen if, let's say, Jaden McDaniels shoved Shea two-hand midair going up for a layup? He'd be suspended. At the very least, heavily fined.
Yeah, I don't. So here's the thing that I don't like. Everyone should get this call. This is one of those, like, it doesn't matter who it is. So I don't mind that Shea, if you're going to push Shea and SGA, and I'm getting around to your point. I don't mind that if somebody's going to push Shea after taking a lob on his fourth 50-point game in the last 2 months. If you're going to push him into the second row, that you're going to get fined and ejected and suspended. I have no issue with that. I have no issue if you put an elbow into the sternum of Luka Doncic as he tries to do another step back on you. You know what I mean? Right. I have no problem if you're going to do that, knowing full well that you are going to be suspended and fined for that action. It shouldn't matter who the player is. It shouldn't matter that this was in Phoenix. None of these things should matter. What should matter is that it happened. I'm particularly aggrieved by this situation because it's the best player on my favorite team, and Anthony Edwards. I don't get it. I don't understand what the point of this, of not calling that right away. What the point of, well, let's go to a review to see if it was agreed.
Challenge it. Like
it's totally and completely and utterly insane. And I know it was a fast break. Not everybody can be in the right position. But like, we're talking about Anthony Edwards here, a guy, if he was in the Olympics, would win the high jump. If he was in football, would have had 20 touchdown catches.
There was a conversation that LeBron had with him about face of the league that ESPN was talking about. Like, this is a budding superstar in your league.
That guy doesn't get 12 feet in the air and then just not catch a ball and bounce off the backboard without something having happened to him.
With a guy right next to him.
What are we doing?
How many times is there a foul called, Corey, where, and this is different, I know, high school to NBA, but like, how many times there's a foul called where you're like, you know, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't, but from where the official was, like, something happened, and you kind of have to assume that there was some infraction committed. The officials just didn't. They just let it play out. And the other thing on that is, again, like, they just let it play out. The Wolves have to use a challenge. They have to review this. You just let it
I am a huge proponent, a complete proponent of leaving high school officials alone. I'm a complete proponent of that. These guys are not high school officials.
They get paid a lot of money.
Officials, they get paid a whole lot of money to not miss flagrant. And the reason you use flagrant, one of the reasons the word is flagrant, is because it's obvious and deliberate.
Right.
When it's deliberate and obvious, it's not meant to be sneaky. You're not jabbing somebody in the ribs running down the court and trying to get away with something. That was not the intent of this. It was obvious and intentional. I don't know what we're doing. It's farcical what goes on with NBA officiating. It is the fact that it's a constant storyline, and the only thing the NBA or people who defend the NBA can say is just like, yeah, it's just the way it is.
Right. And the other thing is too, somebody joked, they're like, you need to rescind 3 technicals against Anthony Edwards, because like this is, people will look at Ant, and we've talked about this before. We have been on both sides of this coin. Anthony Edwards needs to do a better job controlling his emotions in a game. This is the first game he had coming off a suspension because of how he handled himself, throwing the ball 4 rows into the bleacher. Like, this is a game, like, we've talked about this before. He needs to grow up. He needs to mature. He needs to do all this. All of that is true. And he doesn't, this is the Karl Anthony Towns conversation too, to a lesser extent, where it's like, Cat gets a bad whistle and complains about it. And then people go, well, yeah, he's not going to get a good whistle. He's complaining all the time. It's like, and then it's a chicken or the egg thing. Is he complaining all the time because he gets a bad whistle? Or does he get a bad whistle because he complains all the time? And depending on just what you want to believe, you can talk yourself into either one. But like, this is why Anthony Edwards will go through the lane and will come back up and will go down the court, like just staring the officials dead in the face. Like, I just got punched in the gut on my way up to the rim. You're just not going to call that?
The missing fouls and throwing a temper tantrum over missed calls. It's frustrating when you see other guys get phantom calls all the time.
Right.
And like these are, but like missing fouls is a thing, and getting over it is a thing he has to do. You just have to. I can't have you upset over a foul that you may or may not have won, or a foul that you wanted that may or may not have happened, and then be the last guy down the floor to just give up a wide open 3 and the guy you should have been guarding. We can't be doing that. They just got a 3. You thought you got a foul. They just got another 3. That's a 6-0 swing because of your lack of effort. Missing a 2-handed shove to the rib cage on a lob in a blowout game, like that, just on somebody else's floor. How do you not know that's coming? The whole world knows that at some point the Timberwolves are going to do something. The team that's winning is going to do something that the other team on their home floor is not going to appreciate. And they're just going to try to I want to get out of this game. I want this game to be over. Coach,
send a message.
This season is a lost season. This is all turning weird. Everything about, like, how are you not anticipating some of this stuff?
Mm-hmm. And
as officials.
And by the way, the Suns didn't play defense all game. And then the one time Beal is going to go hard on a fast break, he's not doing it to play defense. He didn't do it all game. Why was he going to do it then?
And that's not defense.
Exactly. Well, like, that's what I'm, like, if you're an official, you're like, hey, why is his motor going here? He's up to something. Like, put that calculus in your head. And here's the final cherry on top of this. And then we got one more thing to talk about before we wrap up the show today. Mike Conley was like, you got Mike Conley like visibly upset and ranting. Like, when you get Mike Conley to do that to Brad, like Conley was like following Bradley Beal down the court. Like, you can't do that to our guy. Like, you cannot. Come on, man. Like, when you get Mike Conley worked up about stuff like that, that's how you know you did something egregious.
Can I ask and bring up 2 kind of adjacent Phoenix Suns points?
Sure, yeah.
One is that court was super cool.
Oh, it was awesome.
Did you notice that? It was a really sharp looking court. The other thing is there's lots of talks about KD being traded, right? You mentioned it at the front of this thing.
And like expects to not be on the Suns next year.
Correct. And the Timberwolves are one of those teams that are like constantly in the rumor mill about KD because of Ants.
Ants got a little brother, big brother kind of situation.
Right. I love KD. And I think he is, if LeBron is Michael Jordan, then if LeBron is to Michael Jordan, then Kevin Durant is to Charles Barkley. Like, I hope people appreciate how good Charles Barkley was, and the reason it never worked out for him is because Michael Jordan existed. And one of the things that has also happened is the reason things just haven't worked out career-wise necessarily for KD is because LeBron exists, and you have to take
Warriors existed when he wasn't in them.
You have to take LeBron into account in all player situations of that same generation. And Aaron, KD is going to be a victim of the LeBron era as far as his all-time career goes. I love KD. He is awesome. He can't be a Timberwolf next year, right?
I'm sure there will be conversations, but I think if next year, if we start the 25-26 season and KD is not a Wolf, that is okay with me. I can talk myself into it if it happens.
If it happens, we are the first. Let's just say it right now.
Yeah,
I am buying a KD jersey. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm buying a Kevin Durant like throwback Wolves jersey, or like actually, I'm buying a Kevin Durant jersey with the black ones with the trees. That's what I'm getting.
Can he wear number 35 though, or does that belong to Mark Madsen?
Kevin Durant's wore other numbers. He's wore other numbers. He can make that work.
I just he's old. He's injury prone. He is like you're gonna have to mortgage a lot of things to get KD on your team to make that trade happen. And he is a perennial discontent.
Right. He loves basketball, but
if he starts the 25 season on the Timberwolves, the 25-26 season, he's gone before 28 of the following season to another team.
Yeah.
Or retired or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't. It's gonna like this. It's got to be slim pickings for this, right?
Right. And I mean, maybe the Wolves will feel pressured because of Anthony Edwards. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't.
Nas straight up. Would you do it for Nas straight up?
But that's well, it depends because
I think is the answer.
Would you sign and trade Nas because Nas is going to become a free agent this summer?
The thing is Nas could be a part of this team for the next presidential term.
Well, and this is the point: is look at the Phoenix Suns. They made a finals. They had a young core. And they blew it up to get Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. And they sunk their team with star power. Whereas the Wolves, I mean, and this is the case, like the Rudy Gobert trade is okay because the players that the Wolves are drafting right now in Terrence Shannon Jr. and in Jalen Clark and some of these and Rob Dillingham have, and I know that the trade is not like the Jazz are taking a long-term view, but the Wolves are finding young players that have been more valuable than Walker Kessler and a few of these other guys, or to the Wolves are more valuable to them. Like you can get by with that, but blowing up your young core again, or like mortgaging your future, and you're going to have to trade guys. Like, would you part with Jaden McDaniels for Kevin Durant? Like, would you we're having a really good year this year. Like, do you want to, because that's what Phoenix did. They took everybody, they blew it up to get Durant, and now their team is hosed. And if you're the Wolves, do you think that it's the Tobias Funke gift from Arrested Development? It doesn't work for anybody. Maybe it'll work for us.
We're leaving out an obvious name, probably on purpose for sake of argument. Like Julius Randle is the guy.
Oh yeah, you trade him. Yeah,
like, Julius is a goner. The question is, what
you're gonna have more than him
are the other pieces? Is it Julius and Nas? I don't like that. Is it Julius and Jaden? I don't like that. Is it Julius and draft picks?
You don't have a ton of those.
You don't have a ton of those, but is it like could you do Julius and good draft picks for KD and bad draft picks? You know what I mean?
I mean, that's all the Suns have is bad draft picks. And if you're the Suns, you need good draft picks. You actually have capital to either rebuild or to trade for another superstar with Booker.
So if that's the case, then whatever. Like Julius was a short-term solution anyway. KD is going to be a short-term solution. I think we all appreciate what KD does more than what Randall does. Then fine. But if we're starting to, I don't know, man. I just don't know how I feel about that at this present moment.
Yeah, I think we can both talk ourselves into it and out of it pretty easily.
If a healthy KD and a core,
right,
is a title contender.
And by the way, there's a good chance Anthony Edwards meshes much better with Kevin Durant than he has with Devin Booker. Like
a chance.
There's a chance. Not to say that they're at odds, but I think Beal is the thing that really kind of screwed them. Like just kind of mixed.
Well, right. That's not. I don't know. I feel weird because I love KD and I would love for him to be in a Timberwolves jersey, but I'm afraid of what the math
happened in Brooklyn. Look what happened in Phoenix. Like
it's not even that. I'm afraid of the math equation to get him on the Timberwolves team. And I know we talk about sports windows all the time and how that's they don't exist. They only exist in the moment. It's a moment. So like KD gives you an immediate moment, but he's got 18 months in the Timberwolves jersey. That's it. For injury, for discontent, for retirement, for whatever it is. He's got 18 months at most in a Timberwolves jersey, and I don't know. I'd be willing to give up after that 18 months if it meant a title.
Of course. Yes, I'm willing to give it up for only 6 months if it meant a title. Like
you can't guarantee me a title.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the other thing too, is that the Kevin, this is one thing to also consider. The Kevin Durant contract isn't great for Phoenix, and Phoenix is approaching, they're a second apron team that is going to miss the play-in at this rate. Like they're spending as much as the Wolves are, and they're going to miss the play-in entirely at this rate. This is going to be like, we talk about a math equation for the Wolves. Like the Suns don't have a lot of leverage. They can't just go, we're going to keep Kevin Durant. That team is unworkable, and they're approaching the second apron. They're like, they need to make some changes, and nobody wants Bradley Beal, but people might want Kevin Durant. So like the point is, like, it will cost some players to get him. It's going to hurt. But it's not going to be, there's a chance that it's not like the Gobert package where it was like a bunch of players and 4 draft picks.
The thing you could say about Gobert, and no one is comparing Kevin Durant all time to Rudy Gobert all time. That's not what this is. But the thing you could say about Gobert at the time, if you want to defend it, is that he was at the peak of his powers.
And still.
And had an unhealthy immediate next year, but then was the defensive player of the year the following year. Like Kevin Durant is farther down the back slope of his career than Rudy Gobert is, or was at that time.
Right. And that factors into his price.
It factored. It has to. It better. Anyway, I know that's we went plenty on that, and that's a more conversation for further down the line, because they will definitely be a part of this rumor mill going forward. But my gut reaction to all of this right now is like, maybe the Gobert thing is, a little PTSD from that too. Like, please just be careful. Just please be careful with this.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't just get it because, Ant would love this. Get it because it actually would fit the long-term vision of because doing things because it looks cool in a jersey swap is what got the Phoenix Suns in the position that they're in.
And KD doesn't need to be long-term, but there needs to be answers long-term.
Right. Exactly.
Options long-term. It's one of the reasons why I hate talking about OKC, but one of the reasons why everybody's so high on them is because they somehow got Shea and immediately pole vaulted them into immediate contender. And they have picks coming out of every orifice in their body. They can do whatever they want to get whoever they want, including draft. Like they have a million options, a million.
Exactly. So it's just something to keep in mind and to consider over this stretch. All right. One last thing, Corey, today is the deadline to franchise tag, and let me double check just kind of if there's a specific
that it hasn't happened.
Yeah. Well, mainly just that we kind of know franchise tag deadline. And the deadline falls at 3:00 this afternoon.
Okay.
So we'll know by 3:00, and maybe if you're listening in the afternoon, you already know. You're going to find out when You'll find out this afternoon whether the Vikings are going to franchise tag Sam Darnold. It would be like $40 million, all having to be paid this year. So it would mess up your salary cap situation a little bit. But that's what is. There's been reports that the Vikings will not franchise tag him, according to Adam Schefter. And it's kind of a growing belief that the Vikings are going to let Sam Darnold hit the market. Now, there's the big reason for that is you just feel like you can't get a trade that's worth your while also running the risk of holding on to Sam Darnold, because the Vikings did this a couple of years ago with Anthony Harris, right? They franchise tagged a safety, which is really weird. You don't franchise tag a safety, but they did because they thought they could tag and trade him because he came off a career year. Nobody wanted him, and the Vikings got stuck holding the bag. And then Anthony Harris played in 2020 and wasn't great, and then didn't get a contract afterwards. The point was, like, that didn't work out. And there's the risk you run by trying to tag a player to trade them. And at quarterback, you can't we'll put him on the field part of the time, this other guy part of the time. JJ McCarthy had a very interesting comment on the Rich Eisen show where he wasn't he was just talking about the reality of situations where he's like, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, look, if we have a quarterback who's making $40 million, he's going to be getting a majority of the first team reps. He's like, I want to try and work to get first team reps. And if we have I'm putting words in his mouth. And if we have a quarterback who makes $40 million, the Wolves aren't going to sit there in their suites going, why is the guy we're paying $40 million sitting on the sideline while the other guy's taking first team reps? That's the situation. So the Vikings at this rate are probably not going to franchise tag Sam Darnold. There is the other side of the coin, which is the Vikings under Kwesi have been a very airtight team. They don't leak to the media very often. So this could be a lot of speculation by people and hearing from other team sources. But all it takes is one team to crack at the last second and for the Vikings to get a deal done. That being said, this is all kind of the information to lead up to this, Corey. Will or should the Vikings franchise tag Sam Darnold? Or do they just risk letting him walk for nothing?
I'm going to dance around that answer because I have kind of three points that I think are worth mentioning in this conversation. Again, as we're doing this, it could happen as we're doing this.
Right.
They could either do it or he hits the market, whatever. A few things that we need to know. One is the combine is happening right now. So all of these teams are in one spot, and
all the GMs, all the agents,
they're all there, which means they're all talking. Whether they're legally supposed to or not, there's coded messages and meet me on the 9th at 9. You know what I mean? There's things like that are happening. So it is, I think, fair to say, reading between some of the lines here, that the Vikings know what the market value of Darnold is. They just know what it is. And either it is low enough that they feel like they can get him cheaper than market value or cheaper than a franchise tag value. And this doesn't, just because they don't franchise him doesn't mean they can't re-sign him.
Right.
Right. But if they think the market is what it is, maybe they think they can get it cheaper than that. Or the market for Sam Darnold is through the roof high, and the Vikings just don't want to be in that game. And paying a guaranteed $40 million for this year when he could take $100 million over the next 3 or 4 guarantee, you know what I mean? Like with someone else, he's gonna wisely go take that route somewhere else. So that is one part of this equation. Another part of this equation I saw this morning from Colin Cowherd is that the Raiders were going to offer $100 million for Matt Stafford. So now that Matt Stafford isn't in play, Sam Darnold is probably the next target for most of these teams. Now, was Matt Stafford maybe 2 years, $100 million? Sam Darnold, you're talking about maybe 3 with an option for a 4th at $100 million. You know what I mean?
Right, like 3, for like $40 million instead of $50 million.
But we're talking about $100 million,
right?
And a team from the Raiders who are just going to do stuff, whatever the market dictates. The Raiders are just going to do whatever. So that's another part of this that I think is how desperate are some of these other teams. And Matt Stafford is off now, which means Sam Darnold is probably the number one choice. Him and maybe like teams try to get after Kirk Cousins or something like that.
Right.
The other thing that weighs into all of this is there's a lot of pro JJ McCarthy propaganda out in the world right now, right? He's healthy. He's gaining weight. He's slinging the ball all over the place. He's running. He is going to be ready to roll when we meet for OTAs in April, and he's going to be ready to roll for mini camps in June. Like, they're talking about him not only being ready, but being ahead of schedule as far as being.
Right. The Vikings are putting that out, like Kwesi and KOC. Like, they're the ones who are making sure everybody's aware.
That's my point. Is this stuff is out because the Vikings want it out. Right. And if the Vikings want it out, this is their way of gracefully Viking funeraling Sam Darnold. They're just pushing the boat out into the water, and they're going to hit it with a fire arrow, and it's just going to peacefully sink to the bottom of the ocean, and everybody's going to be like, thank you for your service. We're on to the next.
Right, exactly. It's a way to mentally prepare the fan base. Hey guys, like JJ McCarthy's pretty awesome. Now, to be fair, I don't think the Vikings need to do too much PR, and I think it's a little unfair that Vikings fans turned on Darnold so fast, but in part was because they're excited about JJ, but in part, Sam Darnold played his worst 2 games as a Viking, his final 2 games as a Viking. The fan base is already ready to move on. There were some Kirk fans still at the end who weren't quite ready to see him go, but everybody, I think there's a majority of the fan base that is ready to see JJ McCarthy be the starting quarterback. And I wouldn't be upset if Sam Darnold came back for another year, but I'm also like not going to be upset that the Vikings let him go. And that's the biggest thing. Now, the reason that he would go, the reason that the Vikings would let him go for nothing, I think, is just the fact of, because this is a team that has they have like 3 draft picks this year. It is not a lot. Like, and if you could get even a 5th round pick for Sam Darnold, like maybe you do that. Now, maybe the Vikings are like, a 5th round pick isn't worth hanging on to him and potentially having to trade him. The Vikings could re-sign him, like you talked about. He could sign a 3-year deal that the Vikings could use to move the cap around. And it doesn't mean that Darnold is here for 3 years. It means he's here for 1 more year, but now we can move the money around and manipulate the cap a little bit, and we'll trade him after this year. And then a team can trade him knowing that he's under contract. Like, that could be it. All options are still on the table. My guess is, if you were to gut check me right now based on the reporting, it feels like Darnold is going to walk. He's going to sign a free agent deal with the Raiders or the Steelers or the Giants. And the Vikings are going to use the salary cap space to go sign a guard or 5 and go sign a corner and get ready for the draft.
I think the most important thing to remember in all of this, CJ, and you and I have talked about this quite a bit, just in the building, is the Vikings plan has always been for 2025.
Yes, they just overexceeded expectations.
It's worked out in 2024 unbelievably well, but the plan has always been for 2025. And one of the things in that plan was having a ton of money available in 2025 and using almost half of that money on one player for a franchise tag, in spite of how well he played, is the team
they've had to pay a high-end quarterback contract for a decade now.
Yeah. So they've been looking ahead to the 2025 season for at least 2 seasons, maybe even longer
since Kwesi got here.
Yeah, exactly. And eyeing up the end of Kirk's deals and things like that. They have the quarterback isn't their only fix.
Right.
And if they have a guy who they think can be serviceable, and you can make the rest of your team dynamic because you don't have a lot of draft picks, but you do have money available, you kind of got to do those other things. Mm-hmm. You got to do it. So I'm with you. I think Darnold is probably, should we just say it?
Yeah, he's gone.
Sam Darnold is a Raider. I'll say it.
I think so. He's a Raider because, by the way, Sam Darnold, one of his best games of the year, with the game where everybody threw water on him in the locker room after the Green Bay win, he got interviewed after the game by Tom Brady, and you could see those guys were chumming it up. And it doesn't matter a ton, but Tom Brady hasn't had a chance to watch all football all year long. But he did get to see Sam Darnold sling the ball around and beat up on a good Packer team and look confident, and his team loved him. And if you're the Raiders,
there's no one else. You would have to trade for Cousins. You could just get Darnold.
Right, exactly. You could, well, and the other thing is too, let's say that they cut Kirk, but just pay for Darnold. Darnold's better than Kirk. You know Darnold's going to play a whole year. You like Rodgers or Kirk or Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, like all of those options are like, we can talk ourselves into it, but then at that point, just play Aiden O'Connell again or draft Cam Ward. Like, and if you're the Raiders, they've been so bad for so long, and they play in a division that has, and this is getting away from Viking stuff, but they play in a division that has Patrick Mahomes. They play in a division that has Justin Herbert. Bo Nix took the Broncos to the playoffs. You need a quarterback, and the Raiders have neglected that since telling Derek Carr to leave town. And
Derek Carr was not that good either. So,
no, but that's the point. Like, they need to get stability at quarterback because their roster, like, they have Brock Bowers. They have a blue chip pass catcher in Bowers as a tight end. Now you have that with Darnold. They have to, whatever. Like, they have a head coach in Pete Carroll. Do you think Pete Carroll's like 85, 89, 100 years old? Do you think he wants to develop a rookie quarterback? Probably not. Tom Brady doesn't want to lose. Tom Brady doesn't want to sit and develop. Tom Brady wants to win. My guess is they go get a guy who can win right now. And then they can use the draft pick that they have, a top 5 pick, on Travis Hunter or on, some other player at the top end of the draft that's just going to be a blue chip talent at other parts of the roster or something like that, or trade down and get a receiver or whatever. So yeah, Sam Darnold's a Raider, I think, because I don't think Sam Darnold wants to go back to New York, like to that media market and that stadium, and that, like, I don't think he has a ton of interest in going back there. And the Titans, I guess, are in play, maybe because they're in a smaller market and you can dominate the South. But their team is a mess. Callahan didn't seem like he was that great of a coach, and they just fired their GM, and the GM didn't pick the coach. Like, that just doesn't seem like a stable team right now in Tennessee. So
Tennessee, though, would be fun, and we should. I mean, whatever. We're spinning our wheels here, but like Tennessee would be fun because Will Levis does like it. There's something about your backup quarterback being the diet version of whoever your starter is. Will Levis is diet Sam Darnold.
Yeah, I think so. He was what Sam Darnold was at his worst in New York. Yeah, which was like making bad reads and throwing the ball right to defenders.
We should buy Will Levis jerseys.
We'll just buy some Hellman's mayonnaise or something like that. That's going to do it. This has been the Morning Sports Desk, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. We're getting out of here. See ya tomorrow.
Powered by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Follow the Morning Sports Desk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And watch every show on YouTube.